there's something else that I haven't talked about before because it didn't occur to me to talk about it before. Marita Bonner is not someone whose writing I read in this class. She wasn't taught in this class. She's someone that I, for lack of a better way to say it, I found her through research. The assignment was to talk about Death of a Salesman, which is a really famous play by a really famous white male author from the last century. And it was my idea to, research Black American writers so that I could do a compare and contrast essay with a Black American contemporary of Arthur Miller. And it was quite difficult, actually. I mean, a lot of the time that I spent at the library, when I was able to get to the library, was just to try to research people to find anyone, that I could actually write about. I mean, there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of search results for Arthur Miller and other white people, and really, I mean, and certainly by contrast to that, there really are very few for Black people from that time. And this was this is kind of the best I could do. 1925 to 1949. Like she published the essay that I chose to write about in 1925. He published Death of a Salesman in 1949. It really was. I mean, there's just no. I mean, to say that Black people have not in the United States have not had the opportunities that white people have had to get an education and to publish and to do all the things that white people have done is, of course, an understatement. They're just not there. They're not. It's not even a question of like they're not represented. They didn't have the opportunities. This woman is a Black woman, but she went to Radcliffe, I think it's integrated now. I think it was at the time, and for a long time, it was the women's college at Harvard University. But I don't know if it's a separate college anymore. But at that time it was, and even when I was a lot younger, it was still a women's college, exclusively for women, even though it was part of Harvard University. There were just not that many people who were Black writers, compared to how many white writers there were. There just weren't. At least in terms, there really weren't. And then, of course, in terms of like the white establishment and getting published in the white establishment, even fewer, right? So there were, and there were a few people whose writing I read, but I had never heard of her before. And her essay was what I liked the most of everything that I did read from the people that I did find. And I found her to be, really, really bright. And not just in an academic way, and not just in a, how am I going to say this? And not just like, so she was just really insightful. I think she was a really caring person. She understood, without a doubt, at a very young age, that women and Black people were not going to gain equality in her lifetime. She understood that, and that's what this essay is about. She absolutely understood that. She just knew it was not going to happen. And there she was educated, she was intelligent, she could have done anything with her life in a world that was not dead set against her. She understood that. She absolutely understood that. And so she actually decided to be a teacher. She didn't publish that much. She published a few things, throughout her lifetime, but she taught, talk about an unsung hero, but that's what she was. So I don't know what people thought. I don't know if people who read this essay were just, wanting to say bad things about it, or whatever it is, or they just decide that I was lazy. But in fact, the entire concept of the essay, in terms of like who, he might have said if you want to compare and contrast, I think he might have said that. But certainly in terms of like what I chose, I went outside the class, to find someone who wasn't being taught in the classroom, who was from as close to the same time as I could get, from another perspective. I got a Black female. Arthur Miller was a Jewish male. Probably, I don't know if he's maybe the most famous playwright from the last century. Certainly one of the most celebrated. And I thought what she wrote was better. To be perfectly honest with you, I thought that the way she thought about things, and the conclusions that she got to, that they were, uh, more humanistic than his were. Certainly not quite so, I don't know. He's certainly a good writer. You know, I did a lot of important things. But there are a lot of people who are underrated. Many underrated people out there. She was certainly one of them, you know? And it's just, I mean, the idea, I spent hours trying to find someone that I could write about, you know, and I found her and I wrote about it. So if I didn't put as much time into, you know, whatever it was, whatever it is people think I should have done, you want to write it better, you go right ahead. You know, hopefully nobody's harassing you on either side of you when you're at the library trying to get it done because you're a stigmatized female in the 21st century when this stuff is just not supposed to be going on anymore.